Welcome to the Nevada Historical Society Docent Council meeting and presentation. Today's speaker is Neil Cobb, Reno historian, who will be talking about Harolds Club, which emerged from a hole-in-the-wall operation on Virginia Street in 1935 to become the world's largest casino. Neil is a Reno native and was involved in the family's business, Modern Photo. When his parents passed away, he fell heir to 14 large boxes of old Reno and northern Nevada photos. And he and Jerry Fenwick subsequently co-authored 2 books, Reno Now and Then 1 and Reno Now and Then 2. He's worked closely with the Nevada Historical Society, having presented over 500 programs in Reno, Sparks, and northern Nevada since 1988.
Well, thank you, Carol, and thank everybody that's bothered to tune in on this. You don't put these things together not to have an audience, that's for darn sure, so do appreciate. At one of the Harolds Club Pioneer meetings, Mary Price says, we should at least have a plaque. He says, we have done so much at Harolds Club for the city, for the state, for the gaming industry. Well, that's what this program is about now. And so we're going to go through with the growth of a little city, the gaming industry, and the state of Nevada. Direct impacts on all of that. So away we go. We start off with a photograph. This is one that Jerry Fenwick sent off, got a postcard, cost him $150 for this thing. I was so proud of him for getting into that wallet of his, because that's not a daily event. And he bought this thing. So this is one of the best photos of the Reno Arch when it was having the wording, the Nevada's Transcontinental Highway Exposition from June 25th to August 1st of 1926. Of course, that is 27 because it didn't happen in 26. We didn't have the arch installed until October 23rd of 1926. So we've got a town, we've got divorce, the gaming hasn't been legalized yet, and you have a regular downtown. There's a furniture store, the Virginia Hotel, which is the Chase Block building where Harolds Club would eventually lease. You have the Elite on the corner, which later on would be the California Club, and then after a major remodel, the Colony. So this is where we start off with no gaming. 1935, things have changed as of 1931. The gaming and the divorce have been recognized legally by the rest of the nation. We have the Reno Arch, and we no longer have the torches up on there, and we have this sign all by itself. And if you read the history on it, the sign had its problems. Number one, it was the first effort at neon, and they used a real dark tube in the center on the letters, and you couldn't see it more than a block off. So they had to change that. And they had to change something else, or not change it, but add it on. Where in the heck is this very popular motto, this biggest little city in the world? And so by the time 1935 was complete, we had Harolds Club. They had fixed most of the sign, but this is a better photo to really show you the dark centers in the lettering. Then we have the biggest little city in the world. And I think when this was put up in 29 and then put back up in 35, that it was absolutely accurate because the town itself had a bigger reputation than we had as a physical town. So it was accurate. The Tango Club, the Reno Club, we got some changes on the street. We got the end of the trail. That was the dealers' little stop for lunches and so on, and loans if you wanted. You had a sign out on the front after this photo was taken with a policeman, and he had a stop sign on there and says, "We don't care what they do in Los Angeles." So we've always had a bit of humor in the signage and the business cards around the area. And here's what I was talking about. Los Angeles city limits. Now this one photo, this is Joey Lewis and Harold Smith's first wife, but it's not the comedian, Joey Lewis. This is another fella. But I want to show you the front of the Harolds Club. When they went in, there's an actual door that you had to open here. And the only thing on the front part of it is you've got Harolds Club in neon behind the glass. Things change after a bit. Very popular. Still got a door over here. And notice on the side there, one of the sub-lenders from Harolds Club, because they had the master lease on the Chase Block building with the Virginian Hotel up above. It says Harrah's Keno Club Bingo. Now we have a family portrait here. You got Pappy in the center. That's Raymond I. Smith. You got Harold S. right here and Raymond A. And in back there, you have their wives. And you'll notice that there's 4 women. You've got both of Raymond I's wives. These are the twins that were born in 47. That would be George and Betty Smith. This is Harold Smith Jr. here. And this is, I believe, Laura June. A better shot. This is all strictly Harold and his family. Things keep changing downtown. Signage, it's all over the place now. And if you hadn't made a stop at Tiny's Waffle Shop and watched them, for a long time there, they actually the flapjacks there, but then they converted to 2 big old waffle machines. That was a little disappointing. You had the Western Wear shop there, and the Monarch Cafe. Right on the top of the building is Harolds Club and an arrow pointing across the street. There's Harolds Club, there's the Tango Club. The Tango and Keno, they are one of the same. You have the unique cafe and the Block Inn on this other side. The Block Inn was before they had the little wall, and that was a place where all of the college kids, they would congregate. They had pool tables and so on, soft drinks. So where you went, you could entertain everybody. I like to show this one because it's 1939 and very few color photographs were taken in 1939. But if you were one of the oil companies, you had plenty of money. And this was a Union Oil postcard that they sent out, but it was a nice color shot of Reno's arch. Promotions early on. This is Dolores Rose with Pappy Smith. She was the first woman dealer outside of the family itself. And Dorothy Smith, of course, in the family, Harold's wife, she was the very first female dealer. And they found during World War II that the ladies were very, very popular, and it broke open one of the glass ceilings where women were really able to socialize in the casinos and so on, because you had women dealers there employed and so on. They're starting to loosen all of the rigid um, ruling that they had as far as etiquette or morals or whatever you wanted to go with. So this is fun. You notice that they've got silver dollars on the numbers, and this is the big wheel. And again, this is early. Look in the background. There's an open door. There's the hinges and the rest of it. You can see all of that stuff. And this was not Bertha, the elephant. This was a one from a circus. Here's Pappy with his wad of keys. Each one of those keys went to a separate pace slot machine. They were all numbered. I guess you could go down the chain and get to the right number, but that was a whole lot of work, and which they changed later with one master key and a trip mechanism to spin the machine around so that they could open it up on the back. And of course, you had security all over the place. But now you have gold leaf up in, as far as the lettering. And here's the Venetian blinds. You'll also notice on the bottom here, and the tile stayed with them a long time, but this is the cap on the tile. And you'll just see coming up from the bottom is a large H for Harolds Club. And of course, something that is typical of World War II, they buy war bonds right here. Things are changing a little bit here. So you have this, another leasee. This was Johnson's giant burger shop that I've got the cursor on. I don't know if you guys can see it or not, but where it says the Virginian, look down and you'll see where it says hamburger shakes and so on. And they were able to serve right to the street, the open street. They had to move Harrah's and their bingo. And that's when they opened up the Harolds Club after they took over from where the Mint was, and Frontier Club and so on. Those were all down there next to the First National Bank. But the Johnson family themselves, those restaurateurs, moved to Sacramento, and they started a restaurant there. And this was George Johnson, his wife, and his son, Eppie. And that was the beginning of Eppie's restaurant chain, which was very popular in California for many years. This one, I have a 16 by 20 hanging in my front room. And you can very clearly see this old boy in his brand new Packard. This is 1941. And he's cruising for chicks. He's looking around there. That's a brand new Packard. But you see all the junk on the side here, and another car blocking what would be the front of Harolds Club. Well, they wanted to change that for the postcard, but they didn't have color, as I pointed out before, unless you were an oil company. So here's what they did. They cleaned up the parts of the other cars and the junk that was there. They had to work with primary colors. So there was no such thing as a bright red Reno on the arch. And it was never, ever a brand new purple Packard. It's mixing your red and your blue together. But if you look at all the other colors, you can tell that's all that they had to work with. So that was it. This one is fun. This is inside the Harolds Club, one of the pace slot machines. These were the red pace, and I'll show you another delivery on that. But I have to refer back to Marsh Bay's book when he talked about Harolds Club and them being able to grow after they moved, because they were adjacent properties, similar names, and right down to the same red slot machines. And so with all of the success that they were creating with the sign campaign, they were able to be good neighbors and take care of the overflow. But they had fun with words. Notice how giant jackpots. This is just We haven't found this guy's name, but he's a reporter of some kind or another. And of course, that's Pappy Smith there. This is Dolores. No, this is Olga. This is Raymond A's wife. And this is Pappy, who was a devout teetotaler, but he owned all of the bars and was general manager of Harolds Club. And of course, Pappy, he was the guy that kept, he was the glue that kept everything together because of the two different major differences in the personalities of both the sons. But you notice that we have this linoleum on the floor, and this is one of the our boys fighting in World War II that's having a break at Harolds Club. When the train stopped at the very beginning, the USO, and I can attest to this because my mom had me up about 4 o'clock in the morning picking up the donuts, and we were out there at the railroad depot with this table, and I had big time instructions: don't get into the donuts, they're for the boys. And so we handed out donuts and hot chocolate and so on. But later on, Harolds Club expanded on that, and they were able to have the train stop for a little bit longer so that they could really stretch their legs and come in and enjoy some hospitality given by not just Harolds Club, but it started with Harolds Club. This is the inside of Harolds Club, mid-1940s, early 40s actually. And you can just barely see that same familiar floor in the center there. The place was so jammed. You had a combination of gas lights up there and neon lights on the side and regular pot lights trying to illuminate this place. And of course, there's another one of your signs promoting your treasury bonds that's hanging from the ceiling. This is what I was talking about as far as the delivery of these machines. This was the first delivery. These are dollar machines. And this is Raymond A. and Raymond I. And this is Earl Hogue. He was the comptroller there and the pilot. The aircraft is the same thing that Lockheed Electric. Millionaire Earhart, thank you. Had a little mental block there. This is just a parade shot. You'll see in the background, this is the J.R. Bradley. And this corner here with this tiled roof, that was one of the buildings. They had one on each side of the railroad tracks, and there was a tunnel that went underneath there. This is Pappy up front here. This is Iola. This is George and Betty over here. And Twyla is the youngest one. Here's the giant hamburger I was talking about. So now I don't have to tell you about it. But you see how they had the awning out front, and here he is serving to the front side there. And hamburgers, milkshakes, all of it. Again, here's the full H, so you can see what I was talking about. And even early on, they had these wonderful back paintings. You'll have those inside the club later on, and we were able to get one from a fella, Sherry Zorn and Christine Johnson, and I went over. This fella, he fell heir to his dad's house, and there's something to do about one of these things is supposed to be from Harolds Club. Well, I recognized it right off. Hell yeah, it is. So he donated it, and it's up at the Historical Society now. And somewhere down the line, you're going to be able to enjoy it. Harolds Club, the friendly club, they focused an awful lot on that. But when I first met Pappy, he says, "Do you like people?" I said, "Well, yeah." He says, "Well, that's great." I says, "Because if you don't, I don't have any use for you." Whoa, that was an eye opener, and he was dead serious. So the whole staff. I mean, we had Well, our Harolds Club Pioneers was a good representation of that. We had some of the neatest people that were employees there, outgoing, the Joe Shalines and so on. They formed different dance groups and they did all kinds of stuff off, and they were part of the promotions that Harold would think up, and the way they went, we just did everything. Harold's Club at night. And this is before. This is part of Harris. Nevada Club was in before them. Now, this is a fun shot because you see all of these are just very attractive ladies, and they're hanging out the windows to watch, and here's all the guys. Harold's Club had the power between he and Pop Southworth, Pappy and Pop Southworth. They were real good buddies. They could close Virginia Street with very little paperwork, if any. And so this is one of the promotions that they had with this beauty pageant. But what's really funny about this is Harold Jr., and he's hitting on one of the secretaries that's fully clothed. So he was a chaser. A real nice guy, but he liked the ladies. He really did. This is fun. There's other changes on here. See where the Frontier Club is? I spent 4 years in the U.S. Navy, and the only tie that I know how to tie is inverted square knot. And so the only tie I have at home I got from Spencer Hubson, and it is from the Frontier Club, and it's a beautiful piece. It's got a buck and bronco, the same as they have on the top here. And that, with the neon, it had multiple sets of neon on there. So they actually simulated a bucking bronco. But when he gave it to me, I had him tie it too. And I've got it hanging on my dresser. So if I want to do a program and wear an actual tie, that's the one I wear. But I don't know how to retie it. So away we go. You take a look down the street here, and you'll see that this is 1947 or late 46. This is the scaffold going up for the Mapes, and it's only the first 4 stories there. But Harrah's Bingo is still here, and so is the Giant Hamburger. All of that would move as Harold's Club expanded with the success they had during World War II. So immediately after the war, and I mean immediately, they had plans in the works because they had the money and they had the vision, and they were really going to go to town on it. So the town is growing, and the gaming industry is growing. Look at the more action that you have out here, and they're going to be gaming in the Mapes, and it's in the Riverside, and over at the Calneva and so on. You look across the street here, this is the bank, of course, on the corner. And then you just see that one building across the street, that was Skeel's drugstore. And it was funny because there was 3 drugstores and 1 bank on 2nd and Virginia Street. You had Skeel's, Walgreens, and Ramus. So pretty fun stuff. It's not here no more, so we enjoyed it then, though. This is when it was the California Club before they remodeled, and we'll show you some changes there. But you had the Stag Bar and the Nevada Sporting Goods here on the other side. Otherwise, it was the cigar shop and almost all other things that would play off of gaming. But they weren't allowed to go full-blown gaming until after the red line was broken in the 50s. And so, of course, they did with the Prima Donna, the Horseshoe, and so on. But we had all kinds of things that went on, and they would be hanging banners to promote it. This one is Jamborino. We have a whole series of parade shots. The whole town came out to enjoy this. And again, there's the Harold's Club sign up on the top over here. But one thing is going on, and this is the very beginning of Harrah's. They've moved You see where Harolds is being painted on the side of the building? You still have the two painters up there on the scaffolding. So this was the beginning. They had eliminated the Johnson family and Bill Hara and his concerns. And everybody was growing. Now it's complete. The whole sign is there. But you still have the Frontier Club. That's going to be changed pretty soon. This is a fun shot. We blew it up and focused on this truck. And when you crop this in like this, it really made the town look like it was smoking. It was really, really busy. Well, this was a daytime shot, and it was a normal town. In fact, when I do old Reno programs, I like to talk about we being two Renos. We had the red line with all of the downtown activity, and surrounding that was the best little town you could have ever had the blessings to have grown up in. It was the same as any town that Norman Rockwell would have ever depicted in any of his covers on the Saturday Evening Post. It was a wonderful place to grow up. And this is the one. See, isn't that busy? Now things are changing again. You see that the Mapes is now up. And this one is fun. If we were able to scope in on that, it would have a whole different proclamation on it. We had one that was on there that was advertising the Policeman's Ball, September 22nd, and that would have been 1947. And when I did a program for Jack Neal over at Reno High School in one of his classes, I had a young fellow follow me out, and his parents owned the Sun Cafe, a Chinese restaurant that was way out South Virginia Street. And he says, Mr. Cobb, he says, I have a question. I said, well, nobody had questions when it was time for them. They just looked at each other. If that would have been a 3rd to 8th grade class, you would have been there another 15 minutes asking questions, but not high school. You didn't want to look goofy in front of your friends, which he told me. He says, oh, I just didn't want to look silly in front of my friends. But he said, where it said Policeman's Ball, he says, is that the way they celebrated a big drug bust? And I had to bite my lip when he said that to keep from laughing, but he was serious. And I had to tell him in no uncertain terms, I says, no, this was a chance for the policemen to show that they're part of this community also, and that they are put on a social event like this so they can raise money. And they're raising money for the PLA, which is the Police Athletic League. So he says, wow, he says, they should be doing something like that now. And I said, well, you got that part right. But that he was serious when he said that. And what a shame, isn't it? It's come to that. I like this one because now Harris is really starting on. This is the S on the bottom of the sign. The next one I'll show you, or when I get to it, is they'll have where that's blank, and they have the black separation signs. Well, they had what they had was simulating coins, dropping a stack of coins. You know, you can kind of play them down like cards or whatever. But they didn't. I don't think they were all that popular, but they put a lot of money into it. I love this one with here's a street scene like that, and there's a Duesenberg sitting there at the stoplight. You know, you saw every kind of a vehicle in this town. Then you saw all kinds of people that you would have never seen other places, like the entertainers that we had. They had no place else to go, so they walked the streets of Reno just like anybody else. We didn't make a big deal over them, no. They're just people. Just a nice black and white. They still haven't got them coins up there. There's a nice parade that's going. Everybody showed up for the parades. This is a rodeo parade. And you can tell that just with the banners that are up on the top. This is a Dorothy and Harold. And here you have the management of Harolds Club. This was Dolores Rose, a little older in this, the first outside dealer. Now things are starting to change big time. Harolds Club is up and they've done all they want to do. But you see the Reno arch, the top of it has been swung out of the way. And the California Club now has new windows in it, and there's a brick going up on the outside. And when they're done with that, it'll be the Colony. There's a little bit of a close-up on here, so you can see what's going on. And it's George Miller with his crane, and the McCulley Ironworks was here. That was Tom McCulley. Most of you people knew him as the Iceman, did those wonderful presentations there. But here's what else was going on at the same time. And you look at the sign in the back there, it says, "Watch for our new front." Guess what the new front's going to be? It's going to be the mural. We were successful in saving the mural and getting it relocated over at the rodeo grounds. The rodeo people really worked well with us. But I pinned him, Mayor, this was Griffin, had to pin him down. He was giving a talk over at Pounding Park, and they were getting ready to tear Harolds Club down. And I said, "You are going to save the mural, right?" "Oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah." And his word wasn't worth, well, he's a politician. I had people that were still working downtown, and they kept me posted. And when the demo people showed up at 4 o'clock in the morning, I had the telephone calls from 3 of them. And I called over there to KOLO, and Channel 2 was the other one. And I had TV people down there, and that was something else. And then they got to be very careful when they removed everything. It was all wrapped in bubble wrap and the rest of it. And of course, the story that goes with the dedication proclamation on the very top, "Dedicated in all humility to those that blazed the trail," was saved by Will Durham. He tells a great story on there, getting permission to take those down. And those letters, each one of them was about 2.5 feet tall. And he could carry 2 of them at a time. And he's up on the 3rd floor with a flashlight taped to his head while he's dragging these things out. And if it wasn't for him, they would have been gone. And now they've been reattached with the mural itself. They hadn't quite finished it. You'll see on the right-hand side there, they're putting on the framework that went around it. I like this one because when we went before the city council to save the mural, I mean, we really went after this thing, wherever we could go. But at the time, I was president of the Harolds Club Pioneers, and I had T-shirts made with this image on them. And everybody wanted to chip in, and they all bought these things. And I had maybe 50 people in the crowd when I took the stack of paperwork that was supportive of making sure we can do something proper with the mural. And I said, besides this, I brought a couple of friends with me that wanted to make sure that you understood we're serious. I wonder if they would stand up now. And it looked like the entire audience down there at the city council chambers stood up. Here we are, a lot more modern, but look at, we still have the tile out on the front. This was an electric eye setup. Look in the lower corner, and that was the entrance. And it wasn't an air curtain at that time. And they had an electric eye, just like the early grocery stores and so on, that opened the door and closed the door for you. So, and I got a fun story about that where I made it work. A guy, oh, thank you. And he gave me a quarter. My sister and I were going to the movies, and first thing you know, we never made it to the movies and had a whole pocket full of money. And when I got home, I laid it out on the bed, and my dad come in and he says, "Where in the world did you get that?" So I told him, and I was pretty proud. That was pretty much of an entrepreneur I was. And he went up and smoked. He said, "Here's my ragamuffin kids out there begging for money." What the? Well, you can't do everything right. Here's where it sits now. We're very proud of that. And it's in panels, so it can be more easily moved. The original removal off of the front of Harolds Club, it was panel by panel by panel, and there's 80 of them that are the standard panels, and then all of these front ones that are three-dimensional were additional, and of course the falls there, those were moving parts simulating water, and that was different also. But every one of those now, this is in 6 panels, and it's got its own framework to hold it up instead of the building on the back. And if they wound up moving to rodeo grounds or whatever, they can easily take this down. I say easily, it won't be near expensive. None of this happens for nothing, that's for sure. This is one of the giveaway attachments for the top of your license plate. You see on the bottom where it's got holes. If you went ahead and took the bolts off of your license plate bracket and ran them through both of them, then you'd have this on the top of your license plate. The first purchase of these things was 10,000 of them. They're steel with a porcelain style of a heavier paint that's baked on the outside there. And 10,000 was the first batch. I don't know how many of them that they bought and gave away, and they had multiple places. And a gentleman by the name of Raymond Stagg that was a mobile unit. I'm going to show you some stuff on him later. But with the 2,300 billboards that they had and 10,000 to start with mobile signs, they really had an advertising campaign out there where the traveling traffic down Royal see them. And everything was, you notice it's Harolds Club or bust, doesn't say anything about gaming. That was against the law at the time to advertise gaming. And people would come and want to see Harolds Club and then find out it was a major casino. So this was pretty fun. I don't know what they had envisioned. But here's a setup. This is the Buick that's inlaid with the silver dollars on that tooled leather and the horns and stuff. This is, of course, a patched together photograph, but you can see the one truck behind, and it's got one of these plates on the front of it. But if you look up above, it's a simulated Conestoga wagon, but on a truck. And this was Raymond Stagg's. This is he with his wife out there doing his job. And you'll notice that there's a trailer that they're pulling behind the truck. And it was absolutely jam-packed with these steel advertising plates. Look at the bottom of the Buick. That's how you could go ahead and put it on the front. But he got out there and worked hard. But there's a bit of a story that goes with Raymond Stagg. He was the original owner of the Roaring Camp when it was over on Lake Street. And in 49, he ran into a little bit of a problem with one of the machines, and Harolds Club was already trying to buy the Roaring Camp, the name, the whole works, and the gun collection. And of course, the gun collection had a bit of a history itself. The original part of the gun collection was owned by Tom Mix, an early Western movie star. But this is a great photo that I fell upon a little later. I was tickled when I saw what it was. But here we're up at Virginia City, and this pickup truck, he was able to give away these signs also for anybody who went to Virginia City. Notice that he's got the Harolds Club. This is cut out of plyboard, and he's got the same thing as the license or the attachment to the license plate would have. The Harolds Club. The Reno Arcade, by the Reno Arch is what it says, not arcade. One of my Harolds Club pioneers, she brought this in. She was pretty tickled with what was going on. With the suggestion with Mary Price, somebody had to go after all of this. And so I had plenty of help with the rest of them, but they didn't know the routine, having to go through the Historical Resources Commission and spend 3 years before we had success. So there was a whole bunch that went to this, but it was important to have Harolds Club recognized. This is one of the standard signs that they would have, and everything was Western themed. You would have something happening to a cowboy and his partner in a canoe, or a runaway hand car on a railroad or whatever. Here we've got the Indians chasing the stagecoach there. We also fell heir to something else, and Steve Ellison was able to go with the lead that I had given him, where I worked on a bunch of photos that were in an album, the recipients of the Harolds Club scholarship awards. And what he wanted to do is clean up this. Eric, I'm talking about Eric Moody talked me into this, is these photos were chipped and bent and pretty bent up. And what I did is I glued all kinds of pieces together and then got them in glassines and so on. And it was Terry Oliver that had brought him up to the Historical Society. He says, hey, he's looking around in a back room and he found these things. And so he decided to bring them over here. Well, when I told that story to Steve, he says, well, I wonder if the people over at Fitzgerald's now that wound up with all of that might have that. So he talked to the big manager of the whole darn place. He said, oh, no, there's nothing like that up here. There's da. But a week later, he calls Steve and he says, you know, you got my curiosity up. And he said, and what I found you want to see. So I had myself and Dwayne Kling and Steve were invited to come down and take a look at what he had. And these are the scrapbooks, not necessarily scrapbooks, but the physical proof that they had put up the sign where they put it. You'll see that there's a highway marker there. It's Watson, California on this one, and it's Monterey County and so on. And they will have a name on there. There's Alfred on the top. I wonder if I can get this off of there. Yeah, you see Alfred Costa, and he's at where his address, Route 4. Well, what they would do is go out and they would find places that would make good locations for signs, and they would lease the properties. But this guy that went ahead and painted these signs and put up the other signs, painted those, he needed to be able to get paid. So what he did is he took pictures of every one of them, then labeled them. And so here was the proof. Well, here's all of this stuff that with the payments and the rest of it and all this. And so those are now all up compliments of Steve going down there, backbreaking work, pulling them out there, loading them in his truck and bringing them up to the Historical Society. Now you have written proof, photo proof of all of this stuff. So this is great. big signs like this: Visit Harolds Club in Reno. And this other side would say it's a friendly club. And here we have, this is the Chuckaluck. And you would put your put your money down on the high, low, or whatever. Any of the dealers, I dealt crap there for 3 years, but you had to be able to play, deal the other games. So you would wind up breaking somebody for one reason or another. Somebody gets sick and have you go over and sit in on a 21 table or the Chuckaluck table. I liked the Chuckaluck. It was fun. Another good shot of just downtown. The bank is all dressed up for the rodeo. We still haven't got a shot of those coins for the hares, do we? We're not getting them there. Like I said, they could close down Virginia Street for any reason at all. You'll notice that the concrete down below is real fancy concrete. Now, that would be in the alleys, Lincoln and Douglas Alley, and they advertise that the streets were paved with gold, which wasn't quite true. It was gold ore that was the base underneath it, but they had silver dollars embossed in there. But he's at the very end of Douglas Alley and Virginia Street. In this photo, of course, this is Pappy Smith. And what he's got the Marine Corps band right there in front of Harolds Club. Let's set it down, boy. And they were patriots. Anything to do with the military, they just really took care of them. When we had Stead going and the rest of it, the graduating classes, they would do special things for them, the same as Jesse Beck would down at the Riverside. Those were, in fact, Jesse Beck or her husband had the Keno to start with in Harolds Club, and then as things changed, they wound up buying the Riverside, and Jesse wound up with it. But she was also a big supporter of all of this. This is my good friend, George Kerr. He was the staff photographer there from 57 until they sold the club in 1970. This is the alleyway. It just shows Harolds Club, the eighth wonder of the world. Fun stuff like this. They had borderline storytelling embellishments on something that wasn't quite true, but it looked good in print or in neon. You have the Sierra Turf Club, and I wanted this one shot in there because that was one of the places that you could go in and they still had the barrel with the pickles in there, and they made the best pastrami sandwiches ever. And next door is the wine house. And I'll tell you what, it didn't have a lot of atmosphere, but it had a lot of great paintings, and they had super spaghetti. Harolds Club, this is Pigeonhole parking. Here's the whole building. And if you haven't seen the movie Five Against the House with Brian Keith and Kim Novak and Montgomery Clift, you're really missing out. It was filmed 1955, and it was the robbing of Harolds Club. And it's available on any one of these internet places that have old movies. Here's along the railroad tracks, that side. Any place that you could put a sign, they had a sign. In fact, we had Pete and Dagmar were the two bakers that were up on the 5th floor, and they made some of the best pastries ever. They had a banana nut cake that was to die for. But it became so popular with people buying these cakes, stuff for their birthdays and the rest of it, that Harolds Club, of course, had their own packaging that said Harolds Club all over it. So take advantage of anything to get the name out. This is a shot that is fairly rare rare as far as the angle when you can shoot directly down like that. And George Kerr's assistant, Bev Pomeroy, she was just a gorgeous girl, an hourglass figure and great big old brown eyes that would melt you. And they were working on Harolds Club, doing a little bit of change up, and they had this man lift. And so she went down and she bat her eyes and looked at the guy and says, "Is there any way you could take me up there so I could take a picture?" "Oh yeah, for you." So, but I got to go long now for safety's sake. So in any case, she got this photograph. Now we're going to a 7th floor. There was a couple of other things that were going on during the beginning of Harolds Club. Its growth, it's now even more growth. But there was a friendly, and I say friendly because Bill Hera and Pappy Smith were actually friends. But we, as the guys on the and gals on the ground, we decided that we were the best store in town, bar none. Well, the kids over at Harris, they thought the same damn thing, that they were the best store in town, bar none. Well, guess who won? It was the customers. We laid out the most friendly, accommodating staff. Everybody was smiling. Everybody was glad to see the people that bothered to come in and patronize our shop there. And our shop, of course, was rather large. That was Harolds Club. But this is the kind of a thing that got out through the rest of the advertising. You got to go to Reno. He says, it is a friendly place. And we damn well proved it when they got here. So now it's Harolds Club for fun. World's largest. You know, that was a fact. At the time that this was taken, we were the world's largest casino in the world, the entire world. Something to be proud of. Other changes. I love this one because of that Conestoga wagon out front. You got to see Fort Smith. And that's where, of course, where the up on the 7th floor. Well, they changed that around after this. Most all of the guns and everything. We did have the 7th floor showroom when I was working there in the early 60s, 1, 2, and 3. But the Fort Smith was actually on the 2nd floor where we had all of the major display of those guns. And they also had them in the display windows out in the front. And they just really covered the bases there. This, of course, is that roaring camp over there on Lake Street that I told you about. This is inside of the roaring camp. This is my dad on the right here. And you see some of the guns displayed there. And I like this photograph because it shows that even in a commercial establishment, they had fun. And you'll notice in the center on the wall there is a coin-op mechanism. And you put the quarter in there and those saddles start to go up and down and back and forth and sideways and so on. And so it was fun to walk by and just put a coin in when somebody's on there. So here's the whole shot. I mean, it was a massive collection. And Harolds Club expanded on that. Here's, those are George Kerr's kids there. And you have the fella out there, Ask Me, and he'd tell you all about the weaponry. Same thing here. And here's the inside. This 2nd floor. Red pay slot machines. This is over at Orvis Ring, one of the Spanish quartet, the grammar schools that were built out of the bond issues of 1908 and 1910. So, but take a look. It's Harolds Club or Bust is one of the entries on his American Flyer red wagon. Now this is Raymond A. And Raymond A., he was the quiet one. And he was high up in the Civil Air Patrol. And he did a whole lot of different things. He was a hell of a trap shooter. And he just did just a whole lot of fun things. But he was quiet in the background, and he was in on the board meetings and stuff, and he was calm, cool, and collective, while Harold, of course, was not. He was flamboyant, and he had all kinds of fun doing promotions that would reach the airways or right there in the middle of the club. He marched a Dixieland band, leading the parade, went all through the club, playing the music, and away they went. He was also an honorary member of this Indian tribe, which is the local one out at Pyramid, Paiute. Harold, there's Harold. He drove that motorcycle in the club 2-3 different times, took his horse inside the club. He was a character, but he and that lion thing on the back in his Harley, and he was an excellent rider, but he was out there promoting Harolds Club. This is Pappy. There's 2 paintings, and we have one of them up at the Historical Society, and the other one where he's dressed like this is out at the Elks Club with the direction that if anything happens to the Elks Club, that it's reunited with the other painting. I took Eric Moody over to see my ex-mother-in-law, Iola, who was my best friend for over 30 years after a marriage that should have never happened, ceased to be. And she kept me. Well, why? I'm not sure. But I'll tell you what, I love that woman. And she just was just a super, super lady. Unbelievable. But she wanted me to take care of this. And so I got him up to the Historical Society and over to the Elks with that deal going. This is fun. You broke in on the tables. You had and unlike Harris, it had a school. This was on the job training, but they'd turn you loose with a seasoned dealer. When they broke me in, it was Dutch Murdoch, Jim Murdoch, and Dutch Van Gogh. Okay. And I came in and out of the game, and had a week's worth of training. And then they throw you to the wolves. And the wolves, in that case, was the dime table, a crap table, a dice 5, and back at the corner of Lincoln and Douglas Alley, where if you could deal to the people that stayed 8 hours a day there, knew how to press a bet, knew how to go ahead and put up a bet that couldn't be paid equally, like a hard 8 and an 8. Well, there were different ones that you couldn't divide when they put a quarter on it. And so this was something else. So you learned. In fact, the first time I caught the guy pressing the bet, everybody stopped and applauded me. Oh, well, so that was fun. And they had you deal, place the bets and stuff coming from the right all the way to the left. And you had 2 dealers, one on each side, and no boxmen. There was nobody else there but the 2 dealers. And then when you picked up, you go up from the center to the full right or the full left, depending on which dealer you were. So I had a fella come in one day. Well, I go back to this. She's on the quarter table. That's what these are, quarters that are on the table there. And it was the same break-in kind of a procedure for the 21 dealers. But I want to tell you about this one fella that came in. And what we did in our spare time is we practiced stacking and click with stacks of money or chips or whatever. And I had 20 silver dollars at home, and I would break them down into 5s, click, and back up. You just get a feel for the chips or the money. So this guy comes up and he doesn't look like the regular people that were there. The people that knew more about the game than you'll probably ever know, but the ones that carried a wet sock in their in one boot or the other, and they could take the sock off and pull a dollar bill out there and want change for it. And so it had that happen many times. But this guy showed up and he's wearing a suit, just beautiful suit, all tailored. He's got white on white, either a Packard or a Ripley shirt, which was a big deal to have those back in the 60s. And the patent leather shoes and a silk tie, and the first layer of skin is gone where he shaved so close on there. And he comes up and he throws down $100 bill. And there's my chance. I break him out 80 in reds, which were $5 chips, and 20 in silver. And he commences to just piss it away in the field, which is the worst bet on a crap table. And he takes off. Well, about 45 minutes later, he comes back and he waves me over the side and he says, "Mr. Dealer?" I said, "Yes." And he says, "There's possibly a chance that you shortchanged me because I carry $1,000 bill inside my pocket here. And when I get down to it, it's time to go home." And I says, "And I haven't got it." So click, I hit the button, and here comes Chuck Webster, the general or the floor manager at the time, and one of the pit bosses and security and so on, and tell them the story. And so at the time you could drop the box, in which they did. They unkeyed it and they dropped the whole damn box on the table. And they're sorting through all of these $1 bills and a couple of fives or whatever. And here's this nice bill. And everybody's counting the zeros, and bigger than hell, it had 3 of them. And I was the laughing stock. I said, there was a grape chain or that was instant. It was better than the internet because every club in town knew what a dealer over at Harolds Club had done. So they come over and say, "Oh, I just got to have a look at you." It was something else. But lo and behold, that $1,000 bill was there, and they went ahead and just handed it to him with apologies. And so he was off to the races, happy as hell. But it's things like that happen to all dealers, probably more to the bartenders. This is a stagecoach all done up for one of the parades. Harolds Club or buzzing on the top. Here we've got the modern day. This is after the gaming was allowed on the west side of Virginia Street. There was a push in 1953, 4, and finally success for some kind of control. And it was pushed by all of the clubs that were on the 200 block of Virginia Street, not necessarily any of the people over on Center. Now, Center, of course, was the original section for all of the gaming, and lots of the same people were back after it was legalized. And they weren't real big on having people monitor any of the action on the inside. Well, these people band together and says, we need, so we can stay in business. It's a very lucrative business, and it draws a lot of tourist action to the area. He said, we need some kind of a control. And of course, the state accommodated just real fast on that, because then they could make sure that they were watching the counts for their cut. Well, we did have the Gaming Control Board in 1955, but we didn't have the Gaming Commission until 1959. And this was a major thing to happen because it gave credibility and respectability to gaming, period. They knew they were getting a fair shake, and it had to be up because it was monitored, it was controlled, and it was still lucrative to the operators. Here's our bowling team. I talked about Jo Shalene earlier. She's the girl in the center. And they won some high bowling competitions. I think they had one of them that was Western Regional. Here was the control for the railroad. Isn't that a beauty? I just wanted to throw that in. Harolds Club, this up on the 7th floor, and he would have all kinds of different entertainers up there. This is he and his violin, and he could actually play quite well, but when he had Isaac Stern as one of the people that performed there in the 7th floor, he says, if I can't play as good as he does, I'm not going to play no more. And he didn't. This is one of the female vocalists. This is Lillian Pons and Harold in the middle. This is Pappy in the back of Pons. But this is George Smith right behind his dad. And this is George Kerr in the background with his camera that was always with him. This is a photo by Don Darrow, who was his close friend. And we used this for the first card we sent out for the God Club. And God, it had an acronym for good old days and had nothing to do with religion. And the two of them got together and they decided that they come up with this great idea to advertise Reno. And so this, of course, says Reno or bust on the back of this card. And of course, here's the gal, bare bust on the very front. They talked to one of the gals that was performing down at the riverside and had her drop the raincoat, and they took the picture and they put this together, took it up to Harold and Pappy, and they blew up. They wanted every one of those and destroyed them. He says, you can't be running things like that to advertisers. So, but a few of them were kept out, and George Kerr had a couple of them, so I have one. This is just a shot out of the bank building, shows you what the club looked like. Its positioning, I mean, it was one of the taller buildings in town. That and the Mapes were the two tallest. But you notice that there's rigging going up here, and they're building the First National Bank building. I call it the Darth Vader building, but to all. And again, this is right out of the top, just a close up. This was still Walgreens. The Reno Arch is the one that's in Willits now. That was 64 to 87. You know, this brand new arch that we got down there has been with us 33 years. It's not so new anymore, is it? This is the inside of Harolds Club, shows the escalator. And this is where they took these inside. And the one panel that we got is one of these that's up on the top here. And this is it right here. This is in the house that we got it. It was taken from. Great advertising. More of these plates were removed, and they were real heavy duty. But they if you stacked them more than 20 high, the bottom one would break. They weren't all that strong. You see, there's a crack on the side of this one. This is something else that I fell heir to that I donated to the Historical Society, and it's talking about is this is a printing arrangement. It says as many as 20,000 visitors daily at Harolds Club. Another one of the signs, Harolds Club for fun. Then you get into the Harolds Club Pony Express. Nice color photo of it. Harolds Club introduces Dennis, Seattle, Washington. We're out at the gun club. This is one of the shooters. Here's the facility. Here's where they're located in the same facility right here, but this is the Pyramid Highway. Doesn't look like that anymore, does it? Just getting into the Olympics, 1960. This was a nice shot underneath the arch, and they supported the Olympics in lots of ways. In the front of Harris, they had these signs and stuff up here. Then you had the Olympic room at the riverside and so on. Harolds Club welcomed every one of these teams. They took pictures of every one of them and they gave them to the teams as a whole, and then individual shots if they were performing in an event. And it was fun. Pappy and Harold had heard that George spoke multiple languages. So they called him up to the office and he said, George, he said, we've been told that you have lots of languages. He says, oh yeah, I've got other ones. He said, well, what are they? And he looked him right dead in the eye and he said, the English language and Nevadan. And they looked, he said, what? And their jaws dropped. And he said, oh, do you mean foreign ones? Oh yeah, I got this. They were French, Italian, whatever. What they were quizzing him for was they wanted to have him not just document with the photographs, but to act as a translator. And so they helped in any way they could. And so that's what he did. And he got to know a lot of these people firsthand. Here's the Olympic award area. One of the teams, this is the English team. This is Carol Hess, and she was the gold winner in 1960 of the women's competition. Harolds Club right in the background. Here's the Reno Arch from 1964. Here's the inside of the Silver Dollar Bar. And of course, it was inlaid completely with silver dollars. Lately, I was able to get a couple of the, 4 of the chairs actually that were restored by Barbara Anderson, one of our White Hat members. And she's got them up in her cabin with all kinds of other things that are a tribute to Harolds Club. Twyla was the youngest daughter. And then we have 1999, they imploded it. Here's what it looked like after all of its success. Here's the new arch. Told you that it's not all that new. Here we are at our Harolds Club Pioneers picnic, the Prospectors, Beck Corporation. We had success. I was able to drop all of this text. The opening of Harolds Club on Virginia Street in 1935 by the Smith family changed the face of Reno and ushered in the modern age of gaming in Nevada, with an emphasis on customer service and its innovative marketing, including women dealers and its 2,300 Harolds Club or bus billboards spread across the country. Harolds brought gaming out of the back rooms and made Reno a destination. Along with neighboring casinos, Harolds lobbied for the regulatory body to ensure respectability and accountability in casino operations. The Nevada Gaming Control Board, 1955, and the Gaming Commission, 1959, were the result, setting a model for the country. Now, there isn't another set of gaming people anywhere, New Jersey or the rest of them, that hasn't used the basic text and stuff that was designed in Nevada because it was so well done and so effective. here is the dedication of the plaque. We were successful in doing that. This lady back here, this is Twyla Smith. And of course, you know who this clown is. This is one of the T-shirts that I was talking about that we used when we went before the city council. This is Twyla, myself. Melinda Guston was just ever so important by working with me to get this done. And we were on a panel of 3 to come up with a design that's going to represent all future historical markers. Jenny Beckus, she is one of the council people that actually gives a damn about historic Reno and the impact of some of the founding people that really put us on the map. This is Brad Carlson. He is now on the Historical Resources Commission. He's a good man. Harolds Club or bust, I was there. That's all, folks.
Oh, that was great. That was wonderful. Lots of stuff about Harolds Club. Now there was one slide that had what I think is a conflict. It was your wagon with Harolds Club and then a sign in front that said Harolds Club. The wagon, there's an apostrophe in Harolds, and the sign there isn't.
I've got an answer for that, and you're going to find that Harolds Club and its marketing, after Hare's taking advantage of what I had said before of the adjacent properties, similarity in names, they took the apostrophe out just to show that they were different from Harolds Club.
You mentioned Red Line. What was that about?
That's contained any unlimited gaming. Slot machines were a different story. You had those over at Sewell's Market, and you had them at Hale's drugstores and so on. But when it came to table games, you had to be within the red line, and it was a very definite outlining with Center Street, the one side of Virginia Street, going all the way down to and crossing the river over to the riverside. They made a little jag here and there, but the unlimited gaming wasn't allowed anywhere else unless later on they broke that by requiring multiple hotel rooms it could be part of. And I think that the Mapes was used as precedents to say, well, wait a minute, that's probably why they're included. Well, I think that was 1947. But so whether there's any truth to that or not, I'm not sure. But they had to come in with requirements. And then it was the prima donna and his continual fight that was able to go ahead and get that broken in 57 and go on the west side of Virginia Street. And then he had to take it a little further than that. They had more of the prima donna and the girls that were, but they were only 3/4 side, all the way over to Sierra Street.
There's another question. Did Harolds Club pay for all the billboards, and did the Chamber of Commerce help with that kind of promotion?
No, Harolds Club paid for everything. In fact, they were a major contributor to lots of things where they included the Chamber of Commerce. They had one member that was the head of it, Judd Allen, for a long time, that made a lot of things happen. And all he had to do was go to Harolds Club to get the funding. Memory bank.
Bring it all back. Well, you've got a lot of stuff you draw up from your memory bank. You really do. Well, this was a really great program. I'm so pleased you could do it. And if you could hear us clapping, we'd clap for you.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity. I know most of the people that are on here today, and so I get to say hi to my friends because we can't do that in person.
Yeah, that's true. And I think we're going to be doing it this way for a while.